Hey friends, Mr. Rogers here, and I'm excited to teach you guys about cell transport. And one of the big things about cell transport is understanding the cell membrane, which we're going to kind of go over since that was kind of the 2 days before Thanksgiving. We kind of quickly went over cell membranes. Want to make sure that we still remember them, and then we're going to kind of start this idea of cell transport, what that actually means. And we're going to really focus this week on, really exclusively this week, on passive transport, and then we're going to kind of add in some active transport next week. So first thing is cell membrane. To really understand transport, you have to understand the cell membrane. And so the cell membrane, this is a different PowerPoint than the one you guys did last week. And so if you want to take notes and add some notes, you're more welcome to, or you can just listen. This is up to you. I'll tell you when you guys need to start taking some notes. So cell membrane. Cell membrane defines what goes in and out of the cell. This is an ability that's called selectively permeable. Selectively means you have a choice. Permeable means you let something in or out. So the cell membrane has this ability to determine what gets in and out, and how it does that is by its structure. Now, we talked about these phospholipids in realistically in the macromolecule stage. My brain went somewhere else. Macromolecule stage, and they look like little jellyfish. And so that's what you guys keep drawing, these little phosphorids with the head like a jellyfish, and then the tails, two tails coming down. The head of it is polar. The two tails are non-polar. So anything that is water-based can't get through the non-polar section. We'll take a look at that in a second. And so the lipid bilayer gives the membrane a flexible structure. So these guys are kind of like, they are attached to each other, but they aren't. That makes sense. They're kind of bumping into each other and kind of stuck in between each other. And then there's cholesterol in the middle of them that kind of help glue them together. But there's a lot of movement and allows them to be very flexible. And also this lipid bilayer, we're going to find out, has proteins that we can use to get things through, and also carbohydrates and lipids for communication. Okay. So this is a picture of a membrane. You guys drew one last week. So we can see the lipid bilayer. So we can see the head and we can see the tails coming off. So the heads here are polar. The middle here is non-polar where the tails are. And then the other side is polar here. So if I'm coming from outside the cell, I run into a polar section, the non-polar section, and a polar section. So if I'm a polar thing, if I'm water, I'm okay with the heads here, but I can't get through this non-polar section. It pushes me out. So this idea of the cell membrane basically being this tightly packed thing that only lets certain things in and out is kind of important. Okay, like things just can't go in and out, because if they did, it'd be like having walls in your house just made up of like window screen. Like obviously you get a lot of airflow, which isn't a bad thing, but everyone could see into your house. This, we don't want everything to just get in. We want to make sure that we only let in the things we want in. Now, there are some things that can pass through this membrane. We don't talk a lot about that in 10th grade, but just so you know, oxygen and CO2 can just pass right through. They just like sneak in between everything and just walk right in. But we want those things to be able to walk in and walk out. You want your cells to get oxygen whenever they need. That's not something we're worried about. We're kind of more worried about letting in stuff like viruses and bad chemicals that shouldn't go to certain cells and whatnot. We want to make sure that those don't get through. Now, we're going to skip that part. This is something that you were supposed to have learned before. It's always hit or miss. And so I do want you to take notes on these guys right here. Okay, there's some words that we're going to use in the next couple of days that I think can trip up some kids, even though you're supposed to already know them. So I want to make sure we have a clear definition. So the first one is solution. A solution is a mixture of two or more substance. A good example of a solution is Kool-Aid. Kool-Aid is a mixture of water and Kool-Aid powder. And I mix those together and I get Kool-Aid. It's awesome. Or even lemonade. You can lemonade powder or actually like lemons and water. That's a solution. A solvent is a liquid in which the solute is dissolved to form a solution. So a solvent is the major liquid in a solution. So for example, in my Kool-Aid example, it's water. Or in my lemonade example, it's water. And if you remember back to water, the actual unit about water, water is considered the universal solvent. So water most of the time is the solvent that we're talking about. A solute is a substance that is getting dissolved in the solution. So in my example of Kool-Aid, we have The water and the Kool-Aid particles, they make a solution. The solvent's the water. The solute is the Kool-Aid particles. That's what's going to be put into the water and it dissolves. And then the concentration is how much solute you have per how much solution you have. So if I have 1 glass of water and I pour in a whole Kool-Aid packet that's made for a whole gallon of water, the concentration is very high in there. It's going to taste very Kool-Aid-y. You guys have all done that. Maybe not Kool-Aid, but for a while there, the craze was those like little Mio bottles that you put the little flavorings and the stuff. The more I put in for a space of water, the higher the concentration, the more it tastes like the Mio or lemonade or whatever I'm mixing. Okay? The bigger the amount of water, and if I put the same amount in, it's going to have less concentration. Okay? So imagine putting in 1 packet of water into a giant bathtub full of water. It's not going to make much of a difference. Okay? Now, today we're going to focus on transport, and there's a major idea here that I need you guys to get. So what cell transport is talking about is how do we get things from this side of the membrane to this side, or reverse. How do we get stuff from this side to this side? That's important. Our cells are not desert islands all by themselves. They need to move things back and forth. They have to get food in, food out, resources in, resources out all the time. So cell transport is talking about this, and there's 2 ways that we can do it. We can do this actively. Active transport means that the cell has to use energy to do it. They have to put in energy. Obviously, the more energy you put in, the more we have to make energy. And so active transport is not your cell's favorite way of doing everything, because if it had to do active transport for everything, it would need so much energy. We'd have to be eating nonstop. And for some of us, we're already trying to do that, but for most of us, that's not what we're trying to do. Okay? Active transport requires energy. It's not the most common one. It's the one that, your cell does when it really needs to do it. Passive transport is when it requires no energy. No energy is required at all to do this. I put a picture of a couch because you're just like sitting there and things are getting done. Even though you're just sitting there putting no energy in the cell, things are moving across that membrane. And that is our focus today, is understand the difference between these 2. So you guys have an assignment. It's called passive and active transport. I would like you guys to read through it and answer the questions. At the end, it's going to ask you to make a Venn diagram of passive and active transport. And there's a lot of differences between the 2. And you can put a lot of things in that Venn diagram. A lot. But the major one, the one that I'm going to hit over and over and over again, is active transport requires energy. Passive transport does not. Passive transport, no energy. Active transport, yes energy. Okay? That's the major thing that we're going to be focusing on today. All right? Well, I hope that we kind of caught up on the cell membrane. I hope that this active-passive transport makes sense. If you need me, obviously I'm around. You can always get a hold of me. So have a fantastic day. I'll talk to you guys soon.